If you are ambitious, then most likely when you go to the gym to create muscle, new muscle mass, then you want to have some kind of guarantee that what you're doing is working to ensure that you're not wasting your time and your effort. And in fact, this is one of the biggest reasons why women start working with us, is because they want to have, a system in place that's going to really help them ensure that the effort that they put in, the time that they invest in going to the gym, is going to lead to some significant results. But there's one thing when it comes to muscle growth that is still widely underestimated or maybe slightly misunderstood by so many women. It is the correlation between muscle mass and strength level. And in fact, the only way that you can guarantee that you are indeed growing muscle is because you have an increase in strength. So how does that work? Well, you know that your muscle have to contract to produce force, and because you produce force, then you are able to move the weight. And this is what you do when you go to the gym, right? But there's a very strong correlation between the amount of muscle mass that you have, the contractile tissue, as it's called, and your ability to produce force. It simply means the more muscles you have, the more force you are going to be able to produce. And what it means is if you can produce more force, then you are going to be stronger in the gym. When you try to move some weight, then you'll be able to move more weight, or with a given weight, you'll be able to do more reps. But there's one thing that is misunderstood when it comes to that, is the rate of progression that you can have when it comes to strength and what it means to be strong. So I just want to show you right now on the machine that I'm using what it actually means, and give you a time frame so that you understand a bit better what it means to get strong over time and to use that increase in strength as a proof that you are indeed building muscle. So here you can see the stack of weight, and it goes from 7.5 kilo all the way down to 123. And so getting stronger over time doesn't mean that you go in one session from 14 to 21, and in the next session you go from 21 to 28, and then you stay there for a few months and just get stuck and plateau. What it means instead, because I mean, if you can go from 14 to 28 kilo, that's twice as much weight as before. It's a nice increase, but most likely it doesn't mean that you have increased your muscle mass. It means that your nervous system is more efficient at recruiting the muscles that you already have. So what you want to see happen is this. So you start strength training, and then at the beginning, newbie gains, you are going to progress very fast. And so maybe you start at 21 kilo. So in pounds, that would be like roughly 45 pounds. And then fairly rapidly, in a matter of a few months, you are going to go to maybe 42 kilo. So 42 kilo is going to be roughly 90 pounds. So you've pretty much doubled the weight that you are able to use. And then it's going to get more difficult to make progress. But this is exactly where you want to keep pushing and keep progressing. And so what you want to see happen is that every few months, you are going to be able to go up in weight, and then do that again, and then do that again. And then at some point, you'll have maybe tripled the weight that you were using at the very beginning. So maybe you started at 21 kilo, and then suddenly you are doing like 62 kilo, and then you keep pushing, and then you're at 75, and then this is a longer time frame. After 3 years of training, maybe you reach like 82. And once this happens, it's almost impossible to do that without having a change in structure, a change in muscle mass, because the nervous system alone is not going to be able to produce that kind of change. And you're pretty darn certain if you are able to do that, you know, over a couple of years that your structure will have changed, and it really means that you will have built muscle. Now, with all that being said, Strength training, to make it effective, is not only about just chasing the numbers. And in fact, this is something that we see quite often, because nowadays it's quite popular to say like, hey, I'm training to failure and I'm really pushing hard. And there's that kind of hustle culture coming into strength training, and it's part of identity, especially for the women who are like type A personality, highly ambitious, very driven, high performing. And then the progress happens too fast, and what happens then is that you either get hurt or it backfires and your body starts to kind of break down and really pull the brake because the progression was too fast. And so there's like a few things that you need to check out to ensure that adding weight is not going to backfire, and this is something that Dragana talked about in this video.